All right, so thank you. You guys can take a seat, and we're going to move to the next stage of it, the last one, which is the Q&A section. So I'm going to invite Dr. Dan Richard to come to the stage, and I'm going to invite all interns to also come back to the stage. So Q&A process-wise, those who want to ask questions, please raise your hand, and one of our volunteers will be coming and giving you the mic to ask you the question. Thank you. So we will be quickly starting with the Q&A process.
Thank you, sir. So we've thrown a lot of data at you, right? A lot of analysis. And so we're really interested in your questions. We have the students here, so you might have a question for the students. You might have some questions for our community partners as well about how they're using this data or what was on their mind when they first submitted their application and that sort of thing. And Dr. Umapathi will come by with the microphones. They're on the back table over there. We got them? Okay. Any questions? Yeah, one back there.
Thank you so much for all your work. It's very inspiring. My question is, there's multiple efforts, like I noticed University of Chicago is doing a similar data science for social good. Is there a way to combine these methods so that we are not replicating at UNF or Jacksonville what's already been done in Chicago?
So I guess that's a question for me. Yeah, I think there's a few programs that have emerged around data science around the country, and each one will have a slightly different focus. As Dr. Umapathi mentioned, in Chicago, they're focused primarily on computer science students, and so I think there's a beauty and a value to having students from different perspectives, different backgrounds working together. And so I think that's a signature of our program that separates us from Chicago. There are events and conferences where people who do data science for social good can come together and share their work with each other and support each other in that work and share resources that way. So I think I think we'll see more of these opportunities, and so it's good to be one of the leaders in that field, especially in Florida. Yeah.
So I'm keenly interested in the students' perspective now about the nonprofit sector. Like, was there a, oh my God, I never want to work here moment, or wow, I didn't realize how complicated and interesting, or all of the above?
Okay.
You can pass it as well if you don't.
Yes, real good. So as a psychologist, I did not realize how much data was actually in the nonprofit sector. I know how much they help others. I have a friend going into the nonprofit sector, but I did not realize how much opportunity there was for data analysis in that sector and how much you can do with data to improve it, which I thought was a really awesome thing.
I think definitely too, going into that, just the amount of people that nonprofits have to connect to get their funding. So it's not just, oh, I have a good idea, I'm going to go help people. It's like, okay, I'm going to go to this person for this much money, this person for this much money, and I need those numbers to get that kind of funding. So how it all interconnects to be able to get that goal of helping people.
I guess for me, it'd be the real change that these nonprofits do and the passion that is through these nonprofits, and it actually makes you feel like the work that you're doing is extremely meaningful and it actually is impacting the community, and for this project, the community that you're living in. So,
I've definitely seen like a strong correlation in data collection methods and your ability to get funds for a nonprofit. So like, even like just like going through this internship, I definitely I also own my own nonprofit, and I definitely like saw like, okay, like as soon as I like got done after like the first 3 days of the internship, I was like, okay, I went to my board meeting and I was like, okay guys, we are going to start collecting our data. And yeah, so I definitely saw the importance in that, like in our ability to get funds. Like eventually, like we haven't started writing grants yet, but like we do want to get to that position. So like, yeah, this internship has taught me a lot about like the nonprofit society in Jacksonville.
So I don't know why I thought this. I was a teacher before this, and I thought the real world was going to be cleaner for some reason. Like, everybody's got it together. It's just teachers that don't know what's going on. But I learned that, yeah, the real world is, yeah, the grass isn't always greener, and it's just as messy on the other side. So, no, you're good. Okay.
I have a question for the sponsors. From the academic perspective, these are the students that we take care of. Not asking you to criticize, but what one thing do we need to provide our students more of in these programs to be better at what they did for you?
In my opinion, time. Because it is the nonprofit sector, there are a lot of variables. I know specifically with family support services, there are a billion different ways that they have data, that they source data, and that it's located. And for myself, because a large part of our students come from family support services, the data that they needed from me, I was holding on because I had to get it from them. And so there just wasn't enough time. I think that it's a complex process, and I know that it was over a summer, but I felt like there could have been more done, and they would have been able to complete a more informative analysis if they had more time.
I just want to second exactly what she said of, we have a complex system, and these wonderful kids have taken their knowledge and understood that system in a fast amount of time and did what you guys saw today. So just a little more time would be a better result.
I think some of our students got this along the way, but spending a little bit of time on all the different things that we have to navigate in our roles and in our organizations. Some of us are national, some of us are local. We have governing boards, we have partners. In our case, we partner with the YMCA, which is a great community partner, and we use 4 different data systems. So that was a mess to start with. We had a big wicked problem is starting with 4 systems, and just the legality of what data we can and can't share, and kind of knowing the landscape. I think that's the beauty of this entire experience and project is you get to, in a book, it all works perfectly. In the academic setting, you don't have to ask anyone else, but here in our environment, in the real world, we can't share this, but we can share that, and we have to ask, 5 other people what we can do to allow us to study this. So I think that was a good experience that we all face in our roles every day. So I think maybe adding that component of just, tell us everything we need to know at the beginning, which that's never possible. You keep bumping into those things. But I think we had a good dose of that in our project.
So first, I want to say you guys did an excellent job. Like, the amount of work and the progress you've made has been crazy. So my question is to the interns. I just want to know, because I'm sure some of you, this is your first kind of experience in data science. So I wanted to see if how it's influenced you, what plans you might have for the future. Do you think you'll go into a nonprofit organization?
All right, so as a psychology major, we work with a lot of data, but the outside world doesn't think we do a lot of the time. They think we're just talking to people and that's it, and we don't collect data. And being able to see people who do get to work more with that hard science, and people like Krista who do anthropology, so similar to us, to be able to understand that has kind of given me a new perspective on what I can do with data in my major and how I can visualize data in my major, as opposed to the ways that maybe I would have just seen in a class. So I think it's definitely broadened my horizons on what data science can be beyond just in a computer, a bunch of numbers, things like that.
This was definitely my first experience with data science, and I'm really thankful for this team that I've gotten to work with. Being so diverse and having so much perspective, coming from a math background,
I'm definitely used to asking a lot of questions and trying to investigate, get to the bottom of things. And this was just a totally new way to do it. And I loved having the different perspectives from everybody's kind of the social science and then the more mathematical statistics, computer science backgrounds. I really liked that it was such an integrative process, and you can create such an interesting and fun and colorful and like inspiring story from it. So that was really awesome to see.
So I'm a master's of public administration, never heard of data science before I applied for this program. But I think I like it. I like this. You know, I'm not scared of data anymore. That was one of the things coming in. I was like, I don't know that much about data. And when I was hearing like, yeah, there's thousands of rows of variables, I was like, okay, that's intimidating. But I think one of the cool things about it is wanting to go into government and working in the public sector and having relationships with nonprofits, specifically, and having this experience is going to help me to recognize some of the difficulties that they face in data collection and maybe why they can't present information on like the impact because they have art pieces and helping them to understand, or like as a public employee, being able to recognize the difficulties and the struggles that nonprofits have in data and not necessarily like make it too easy, but just helping them in getting grants and working with government agencies. I think that's a pretty big lesson for me.
So like last year around this time, I did a boot camp, and their motto, their slogan was like data science is for everyone. And this isn't my first experience with data science, but like one thing that this internship has taught me that no past experience has taught me is like that slogan just came back, and it was just like data science is really for everyone. Like I'm sitting next to anthropology major and then like psychology majors as well, and I never thought that like we all would be implementing our same skills and bringing knowledge from different backgrounds and like building something like really nice.
Kind of going off of what he's saying, data science is for everyone in the sense that data science can be applied to every field. Every field has some form of data. Data is just a way of measuring human phenomenon. So you need to know the skills or have the tools to be able to analyze it. And through this analyzation, visualization, you can really get to know it, and you can really come up with some interesting facts, trends, and learn a lot.
I'm gonna take these guys on the road. They're gonna fundraise for us. So some questions over here as well.
Yes.
Yes, and so we try to be we try to be real and honest about what our nonprofit sector is facing in terms of developing these data science techniques. And so we want to help them, as William was saying, we want to help them because they don't always have the same resources that our for-profit sector has, the individuals in the for-profit sector. But we are willing to entertain those projects, especially those wicked problems, especially if they affect our community and affect our lives. We could see that as something viable, and we'd be willing to chat with anyone who would want to propose such a problem about how that might be funded. Yeah.
I have a question. So I really liked about the family support services and the visual analytics. I thought that was awesome. But my question is pertaining to the clients. I work at the Women's Center of Jacksonville, and so we're like super interested in this. But there is kind of a risk of almost exposing a problem that a nonprofit has. So for the clients, what was that like? Kind of, seeing that you may be doing something wrong. What was that like, facing that problem? Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes. Okay. Yes, there was a risk, but I know at FSS, we are more interested in the spirit of learning and constantly improving and helping the people we serve. So at the end of the day, we serve the public and we serve our children and families, and we want to be the best we can at doing that.
I think some of the issues we already knew and just kind of avoided for the last couple of years in terms of our data systems not connecting. And I think one of the first things the students said to us is, well, why doesn't that connect to that? And we all looked at each other and we were like, well, it should. And that's a great question. And I think it does highlight things. I can see where, it does bring out some of our areas for improvement, which I second. We just really want to continue to improve our services for the community. So they gave us a little push to make sure that we're working on those things.
It was a bit nerve-wracking at first because the last thing you want to do to your board of directors is come to them and say, I enrolled us in this great program, and they're going to tell us everything we're doing wrong. And then they're going to present it publicly at the TV station. That's great for press, and it's just an uncomfortable conversation, right? However, the drive behind it was for us to be providing the best possible service we can to our students. We're a student-based organization. And so the better that we are and the more funded we are, the more kids that we can serve and impact in the community. And so as long as we're having conversations focused around solution, I'm comfortable with being exposed and vulnerable so that we can get better.
So for us, or for me, the risk was really minimal, in that my biggest concern was making sure that none of the girls in our program could be identified. So it was around confidentiality and anonymity, but working with a university department who is very well versed in that type of research, I was real confident that that was going to be taken care of. There's only one other thing that I want to take the opportunity to say is that all of us in a post-recessionary economy, our data collection and measurement and evaluation looks totally different. And the way that not only we do it, we collect it, but what our donors and our funders want from it. But one of the things that I loved, and I hope that this university and this program will be marketed the heck out of it, because when I came on board, I had a team that had not been schooled in data collection techniques or any of that. So when I started talking about data collection, my staff went from paralyzation to absolute fear. So one of the things that I love how this is framed is data collection for social good. And that reframe and that language, as opposed to data collection that we all think about for donors and funders and showing ROI and impact and all of those things, all of which of course are important, but that reframe of data collection for social good, that we're showing that we're invested in working with the problems in our community and trying to help solve those as a partnership, seemed to make such a big difference to how my board of directors received this, how my staff now thinks about data collection. It's not somehow so scary. So I love the name of this, and I just really hope that it grows and grows and grows and grows.
I think we have maybe time for one more question.
I'm not sure mine's a question, but really it's an observation, and that is, we're so thankful to UNF to be undertaking this. I mean, we have, as a sector, known for quite some time that we don't have what we need. So historically, not-for-profits have provided services, but no one knows whether those services are really effective. So anecdotally, we think they are, and now all at once, the whole world wants us to tell them that we're using the money efficiently and that we're achieving the outcomes that the program is designed to do. So in the case of foster care, we're using a system that was designed in 1993. And that's about 15 eons ago in terms of computer science. And so we have probably 100 different manual tracking systems that we use so that we can manage different programs. So every time we want to analyze a program, we have to manually pull all that data together and crank through it, and then we can't reproduce it again next month without all that effort. So I really applaud UNF in bringing both social scientists and data scientists together to help us, and this is really the future of where we're going to go.
Thank you. So a comment, not necessarily a question, and we had a question over here.
Oh, just
we have.
Sorry,
sorry.
Go
So
ahead.
this will be the last
So
one.
just want to remind you guys, we have still 6 more minutes allocated time for Q&A.
And this is a very quick question, and you alluded to it earlier. Is or are there plans perhaps to scale this program up? And there is a huge need here in Jacksonville, as you know. But even though Jacksonville is one of the most philanthropic cities with one of the highest number of nonprofit agencies in the country, I think this is a wonderful opportunity to continue to scale this program and include more students. Are there plans for that, perhaps?
Last year we had we worked with 3 nonprofit organizations and had 5 data science interns. And so this year we were able to grow the program with 8 students and 4 projects. And so yes, we would like to expand this and grow this. And so we are pursuing a number of different avenues for funding for that.
First, congratulations to all of you for a very impressive presentation and very thought-provoking. For the not-for-profits in the room, this will probably resonate. We have multiple systems that collect data, and it's very hard to connect those systems. So it's my observation that a lot of the data that we're collecting we're not even using properly. And so I guess the question that I have, do you help me to identify where I have commonalities, and are you able to advise me on how to use my systems better?
I would say yes, because that was kind of something that was with my project pretty big on, was helping them understand the system that they did have and how to potentially modify that to better meet their goals, especially within analysis. So I would say yes. Short answer.
So with the Baptist data, we used one data set, but a lot of comments when we first came in, we just put things together and we were like, okay, here's, how many people you have, here's what's, how old they are, here's these simple things that they hadn't had the knowledge of what they were actually, they kept saying we didn't know what we were sitting on. So there's this information there, and being able to even just say, well, this is how you can interpret it to make it meaningful, I think was a huge thing, even not bridging data sets together, but simply being able to have the knowledge to show you how to understand what your data could really mean. Because sometimes when you look at numbers so much, you start thinking it can only mean this, or we can only look at it this way, and we were able, I feel, to kind of turn it in different perspectives and offer new information that way.
So anyone have a question? We have 3 more minutes of question.
Good evening, and you all did a fantastic job with your projects in your presentations. I work for Hubbard House, and we are a domestic violence shelter, and one of the things that one of the providers talked about was confidentiality. And ensuring the confidentiality of our participants. How were you able to do that? I guess that's one of my questions.
So I was the one that talked about that. So for all of our girls in the program were coded by a number. So nobody could be identified by any type of name. And even on the presentation tonight, you saw a school that wasn't the real name of a school that we did. So, there are just multiple ways that you can do that to ensure that nobody can be identified.
You may have seen on the presentation there was like School 1 or School 14.
Exactly.
That was the extent of which we knew where those schools were, that the girls were participating. So we had some significant protections for the girls.
Okay, so who wants to ask the last question? All right, first person ask the last question.
Thank you so much for an interesting discussion. My last question is, what resources would you recommend to learn more about data science or social science or everything related?
It's a very good question. I would say if somebody is, like a lot of us from here are not from the computing department, but we are from various disciplines. Each one of us were working with our own set of tools. So one of us were few of us were comfortable with SPSS, few were working with R, some with Tableau or SQL. So there are a range of tools. So you can start with something that you're most comfortable with, depending upon the domain that you're coming from. Yep.
My answer to that is get an internship at NLP Logics. But no, on a real note though, I say the way I started was first trying to visualize the data. So just getting used to Tableau, which is just Excel, but really a lot nicer. And so yeah, getting used to Tableau would be a good first step. And then data camp, start learning R and Python. You just get used to moving around the data, visualizing it. And then eventually you get into the modeling part. And then, yeah.
I think another important thing in doing anything with data science is having a goal or an objective when you start looking at these things. So I work with SPSS and I was starting to do things and I ended up coming to things like, I want to find this out, can SPSS do this for me? So digging into things I'm comfortable with when I actually had targeted questions really helped me to learn things about software I am familiar with that I didn't even know that it could provide those things for me.
And to build on that, I think also just branching out, not being afraid to, when you hit a wall, to think, who can help me? Who in this organization or that organization, who in my friend group, who in my list of people that I know might have this experience, and just asking those questions, because there was so much that I learned as a psychologist. I've never worked with Tableau before. I've barely worked with R, but I have gained so much just from being like, I don't know what to do with this. I've never looked at this before, what's your perspective? And just making those connections and not being afraid to ask and to admit that you don't know what's going on.
A good bit of intellectual humility goes a long way, right? All right, so yeah, it takes a team to do data science work, so let's give it one last round of applause for our team, and we'll ask them so you can exit the stage. Thank you.